Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Welcome back to the podcast. And yes, it's already been a week since our last FOMO Friday. Every Friday, we bring you this report because we don't want you to have that fear of missing out. We know you're not listening to propaganda media anymore. We know that you want to know what's going on around the world. And in, this week's case, outside of this world. From a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes its very first one, and it is the fact that the spaceship that's gone, the Artemis II spaceship has gone around the moon and is going to come back to Earth today. And on that ship is astronaut Victor Glover. Yeah, NASA astronaut Victor Glover is earning widespread praise from conservatives after rejecting identity politics in favor of what he described as a shared human achievement during the historic Artemis II mission. Glover, one of 4 astronauts aboard the first crewed lunar mission in more than 50 years, addressed the cultural weight surrounding the mission during a pre-launch press event, particularly its designation as the first to include both a woman and a black astronaut on a lunar assignment. Now, while acknowledging the importance of the representation, Glover made clear he sees the mission in a far broader term. He says, quote, "I love that, but I also hope that we are pushing the other direction. This is human history." Glover said, "It's the story of humanity, not black history, not woman's history." The remarks quickly gained traction online and especially among conservative commentators. Glover's perspective also aligns with a broader ethos expressed by his fellow crew members. Astronaut Christina Koch noted that progress should be measured by equal opportunity, saying, quote, "We are at a time when everyone gets to work equally hard to achieve that dream." While Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen emphasized that, quote, "Anybody who shows up and is able to contribute something meaningful can be part of this mission." Well, born in Pomona, California, Glover graduated from Ontario High School before earning a degree in general engineering and 3 master's degrees. He went on to serve as a U.S. Navy test pilot. That's a high risk ambition, isn't it? A Navy test pilot. He logged in more than 3,500 flight hours across over 40 aircraft in the Navy, including the FA-18 Hornet, the Super Hornet, and the EA-18G Growler, while completing 24 combat missions and more than, get this, 400 career landings. He is selected by NASA in 2013, and Glover later served as a pilot on the SpaceX Crew 1 mission and spent 168 days aboard the International Space Station. Glover has also stood out for his openness about his Christian faith, which he has described as inseparable from his career in aviation and spaceflight. If he was a politician, they just call him a Christian nationalist. But after returning from the International Space Station, he noted that NASA supported his ability to take communion weekly while in orbit. He said, quote, "I was able to worship in space." he said, calling it an important part of his faith walk, even while I was off the planet, he said. In interviews, Glover has repeatedly emphasized that faith and science are not in conflict, but deeply connected. He says, my career is fed by my faith. He said, anytime I do something that's pretty risky, I pray. Before I fly, every time I fly, I pray. Definitely when you go sit on top of a rocket ship. Yeah, I would pray too, wouldn't you? The perspective has produced some of his most widely shared one-liners, like, we need Jesus, whether on Earth or circling the moon. And paraphrasing a military saying, there's no atheists on top of rockets. For Glover, the wonder of space exploration itself points to something greater. He has spoken about referencing the beauty of creation, which I'm sure is absolutely astonishing when you're out there in space. But that beauty of creation in conversations with colleagues at NASA, and adding that he sees no contradiction between scientific discovery and belief in God. He says, I believe in both, he said, and I don't find them in conflict. He also delivered a powerful message of faith as he and his fellow astronauts traveled toward the moon, praising God's creation ahead of the Easter holiday. Glover, a devout Christian, obviously, said that traveling into space has given him a whole new perspective on his faith and the earth and the universe, all of which God had made for his final creations, humans. Here, this is what he said. I think it was really good.
I'm glad you brought that up, though. I think these observances are important, and as we are so far from Earth and looking back at, the beauty of creation, I think for me, one of the really important personal perspectives that I have up here is I can really see Earth as one thing. And, when I read the Bible and I look at all of the amazing things that were done for us who were created, it's, you have this amazing place, this spaceship. You guys are talking to us because we're in a spaceship really far from Earth, but you're on a spaceship called Earth that was created to give us a place to live in the universe, in the cosmos. I think maybe the distance we are from you makes you think what we're doing is special, but we're the same distance from you. And I'm trying to tell you, just trust me, you are special. In all of this emptiness, this is a whole bunch of nothing, this thing we call the universe. You have this oasis, this beautiful place that we get to exist together. I think as we go into Easter Sunday, thinking about, all the cultures all around the world, whether you celebrate it or not, whether you believe in God or not, this is an opportunity for us to remember where we are, who we are, and that we are the same thing, and that we got to get through this together.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, I think that's really, really cool. He has made it known that he's a Christian and that he makes no apologies for it, and he's willing to even speak out about it and how it affects him. He has said that it's given him a whole new perspective on his faith. So yeah, I love it when a Christian will not hide anything, not be ashamed of Jesus Christ, and be able to be a very competent person at what he does. Well, kind of here back on Earth, we have an interesting thing happening, and that is that the Trump administration has made it a top priority to remove anyone residing in the United States illegally or fraudulently, especially those connected to the Iranian regime. This is what a White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt told the Daily Wire White House correspondent Mary Margaret Olohan on Wednesday. Now, Olohan asked Leavitt about the administration's efforts to deport people with close ties to the Iranian government, which, as the niece and the grandniece of the late Iran terrorist general Soleimani the one of them is Hamideh Soleimani Afshar, who is 47, and Saradanat Hosseini, who's 25, were taken into custody by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, and they were that was done last week, and this was according to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He said, quote, "I understand one of the individuals' visas was revoked by Secretary Rubio, and they were deported by ICE because they had a fraudulent asylum claim." This is what Levitt told the Daily Wire. That is against the laws of the United States. So anyone who is here illegally or fraudulently is subject to our nation's immigration laws and will be removed from our country. And I know this continues to be a top priority for the State Department, working in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security. Now, Soleimani's family members appeared to live lavish lifestyles in the United States. This is quite interesting. They have photos that they've posted to social media showing them in like designer clothing and bikinis and low-cut dresses and all of this stuff. Meanwhile, women in Iran, of course, are forced to wear restrictive religious garb, including mandatory hijabs and full body cloaks, and are threatened with arrest if they even show their hair. Well, while Afshar lived with freedom in the United States, she was outspoken in her support of the Iranian regime and celebrated attacks on Americans, said Rubio. I mean, how bad is it that you get to come over here to the United States, you get all of the perks and all of the freedoms that you do not have in your own country in Iran, and yet you have the gall to speak against it and support Iran. Just go back to Iran, and that seems to be what's going to happen. Well, Afshar and Hosseini are not the only Iranians living in the United States with close connections to the brutal regime. The son of one of the top spokeswomen for Iran's propaganda machine is also living in the United States and working as an adjunct associate professor at the Chicago School in Los Angeles. The New York Post reported that Esla Hashemi, 43, is the son of the former Iranian vice president of Women and Family Affairs. Yeah. Mosameh Ebtekar, who was better known as Screaming Mary. Ebtekar was the leading spokeswoman for the Iranian radicals who took 66 American hostages back in 1979. You remember that, right? Hashemi has lived in the United States since 2010 and has never publicly denounced his mother's actions. Last September, the Trump administration deported at least 55 Iranians back to their home country, which sparked fear among many of the Iranian diaspora who had fled the country to escape persecution under the radical Islamic regime. And many, as 400 Iranians in America were expected to be sent back to Iran last year. So, yeah, this is just one of those things that you just shake your head at, don't you? You have somebody who thinks that that America and Israel and these type of countries, these free countries, are the great Satan, right? We're the great Satan. Israel's the little Satan. We're the big great Satan. And yet, where do they send their children and their grandchildren to? Well, they send them to us. Why? Because they have all these freedoms and all of this wealth and all of the things they don't have in their country. And yet they still speak badly about our country and try to bring it down. It's just absolutely amazing. Well, speaking of absolutely amazing and trying to bring the country down, while some mainstream media outlets characterize the March 28th No Kings rallies as spontaneous demonstrations that just popped up across the country. You remember that, right? A few Fox News digital investigations have raised questions about the scale and coordination behind the massive professional produced infrastructure powering the movement's flagship event in St. Paul, Minnesota. Far from a mere grassroots gathering, the St. Paul rally featured a logistical build-out estimated at $250,000. It's a setup vendors compared to a professional music festival or a Def Leppard concert or something. The No Kings machine deployed 30 semi-trucks to the state capitol to deliver a 40-foot mobile stage, 100 speakers, 8 jumbo video screens, and high-speed internet. To ensure the safety of the A-list participants, like Bruce Springsteen, of course, and Jane Fonda, shocker, shocker, the stage was even fitted with a ballistic bullet-resistant glass. The investigation identified 9 specialized vendors responsible for the art and science of the event. Leading the operation was Roger Fisk. You might remember that name. He was a political and communication strategist for the Obama and Biden administrations. Fisk, serving as senior advisor, boasted that the event generated nearly 500 million media impressions, noting that earned media was his primary metric for success. Not that it had anything to do with change in our country and like that. No, we like clicks. The funding for this sophisticated operation points to a powerhouse of established democratic nonprofits. Permit records identify the No Kings Coalition and the Indivisible Twin Cities as the organizations and the organizers of this. Indivisible, it's a national advocacy group, reportedly footed the majority of the bill, and the organization is part of a broader network of 500 groups with a combined $3 billion with a B dollars in annual revenue that have received millions in funding from billionaire George Soros and his Open Society philanthropy. Now, beyond mainstream Democratic ties, the investigation found involvement from a network of pro-communist groups, including Code Pink, right, again, shocker, and the Answer Coalition. These groups are reportedly backed by Neville Roy Singham. We've done a podcast on Singham. He's an American tech tycoon based in Shanghai, who promotes messaging aligned with the Chinese Communist Party. But he's a big backer of the No Kings rallies. At the St. Paul event, this influence was visible as socialist organizations flew their flags of Iran, Venezuela, and Cuba, while labeling the U.S. fascists and autocrats and things like this. So, yeah, this is not grassroots. This is just left wing and communist money that's designed to try to put our own society into chaos. And so, don't be fooled. This is no grassroots just sprang up because people feel this way. No, these are way organized type of events. Well, we have an opinion piece from a guy by the name of Alex Tarasisco, who is a pollster and partner with Signal. And I kind of had to share it with you because I think he really hit some nails on the head when it came to this type of campaign and paid for protests. He says foreign adversaries have figured out what American political campaigns are still learning. In a world where public opinion shapes policy, the battle for hearts and minds is fought on your phone. Iran, China, and Russia cannot compete with the United States militarily, but they can reach directly into your living room through social media, front organizations, and direct support of protest movements. All of this with the intent of making voters question whether the fight du jour, in this case Iran, is even worth it. The bombs were falling on Iran when the protesters hit the streets. Within hours, people flooded Times Square and other cities across the country. Signs were already printed. chance rehearsed, logistics arranged. That kind of speed doesn't happen organically. Truth exposing outlets like Daily Wire, Free Press, and others have highlighted this now routine phenomenon. In this case, at the center of the anti-Iran war movement sits the Answer Coalition. It stands for Act Now to Stop War and End Racism. ANSWER, Answer. This is the same type of group that organized anti-ICE protests, pro-Maduro rallies, and anti-Israel demonstrations in recent months. And they are part of the demonstration industrial complex. They're pivoting to Iran right now on cue, of course. And America's foes aren't the only ones who want to sway American public opinion. Ukraine built a sophisticated information campaign in the early days of the Russian invasion. The Ghost of Kiev, the Snake Island Defenders, a little girl playing violin in a bomb shelter. The most devastating piece of content wasn't a battlefield report, but a photograph of a dead woman's outstretched hand, a keychain with a small EU flag lying in the street beside her. Those stories made an impact, and the public continues to support Ukraine in its fight today. Every government and non-state actor that understands the opportunity will and does weaponize social media accordingly. And now these wars have made social media a front of modern battlefields. But here's where I would push back as a pollster, he says, because the data compels me to. Our most recent Signal National Voter Trends, that's the NVT, and their survey conducted March 3rd through the 4th. Among 1,500 likely voters found Americans are generally split on the Iran strikes, 50% support and 44% oppose. These numbers aren't fringe on either side, and when you look underneath the surface, the ideological geography is revealing. Among Democratic women under 45, opposition to the strikes reached 89%. Yeah, the Democratic women under 45. Put another way, 9 in 10 Democratic women under 45 oppose American strikes against Iran. That's a substantial block of the American public that has absorbed a coherent and emotionally resonant narrative about American aggression, and they believe it. The data on accepting law breaking, something the Daily Wire has covered extensively, is equally striking and really tragically relevant. In October, Signal asked whether it was acceptable to go beyond peaceful protests to oppose ICE raids, like those in Minneapolis, of course. Overall, 42% of self-identifying liberals say yes, to go beyond being peaceful. Among liberal women, 18 to 44, that number climbed to 61%. These are Americans angry enough about what they're witnessing in this country that they are willing to risk arrest or worse. That's precisely what happened when Renee Good, of course, was killed in Minneapolis while using her vehicle to block law enforcement from executing an ICE operation. And what she did was not a peaceful protest. It was illegal. And yet, a solid majority of Gen Z and millennial women who share her politics believed, and as of March still believe, that physically impeding ICE agents is perfectly acceptable. Many Americans, predominantly young and liberal, of course, have convinced themselves they're resisting literal Nazis. Yeah, they've convinced themselves of that. They consume media that constantly reinforces the message and have become radicalized. Radicals always believe they are the hero in their own story, fighting villains so terrible that breaking all the rules is justified. The logic is the same whether the villain is Donald Trump, Zionists, or someone new. That belief structure is real. It is not just a bot farm in Beijing. This is the new landscape of American foreign policy. Every major action the U.S. takes abroad now triggers an immediate domestic information battle. Foreign adversaries don't manufacture vote sentiment from scratch. They find real grievances, real emotions, real people, and pour ascendance on the fire. No doubt, this is an alarming confluence that requires holding two things in one's head at once: that many protesters are genuinely motivated Americans, and that the machinery amplifying their voices deserves real scrutiny. It is possible to take individual protesters seriously while also asking hard questions about who is organizing, funding, and benefiting from movements that materialize within hours of a military strike against the world's greatest sponsor of terrorism. Ukraine understood that American public policy was a battlefield and fought for it effectively. Iranians' proxies and China understand the same thing. The only question is whether we do. Yeah, that's a big question, don't you think? Do we really recognize that? Well, I had to bring you a couple things here before we leave for the day, and they're a bit funny. Okay, they're a bit funny. First of all, far left politician rolled out a tongue twister of an identity acronym while claiming that transgender people were facing a genocide in Canada. Member of Parliament Leah Gazin, or Gazin, not sure how you pronounce that, but she complained Wednesday about budget cuts that she said would not stop the genocide of the MMIWG2SLGBTQQIA plus community. Yes, that's what she said. And she actually said it faster and better than I do. She said, when the budget was released, I was shocked to find out that the Prime Minister Carney is cutting $7 billion between Indigenous Service Canada and Crown Indigenous Relations, she said. They provide $0 to deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIWG2SLGBTQQIA+. I'm going to have to practice that. Yeah, the 16-character acronym stands for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit, Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer, Questioning, Intersex, and Asexual, with the plus sign for anyone else who may have been left out. And there are those that definitely were left out. So, pedophiles, in fact, I mean, I joke not, want to get in on that, and some put it in there. So anyway, it just never ceases to amaze me. But let's end on this, can we? Again, I know this has been on your mind. This is a question that's been on your heart for a long time now, and we finally have the research on it. In the tradition of serious journalism, the Washington Post on Monday cemented itself as the pantheon of legendary media outlets with this pressing headline. What was the headline? Do men or women have worse farts? Science has the answer. Yes, this is real. No, it's not a Babylon Bee. This is real. Yes, while Americans were watching the immense success of American military in Iran, the Post elevated the intelligence of its readers with this slop. Yeah. To make matters more elegant, the Post noted that Monday's article was an excerpt from a forthcoming article entitled, "You've Been Pooping All Wrong." I should probably get a copy of that article. Stop the presses and clear the room, because we finally have the hard-hitting investigative journalism we deserve. Science has finally settled the age-old debate of whose farts smell worse, men or women. That's literally what the Post reported. Meet Dr. Michael Levitt, a man who looked at the vast mysteries of human biology and became known as by his colleagues as the King of Farts. I want that moniker. Anyway, armed with a gas chronograph and a dream, Levitt didn't just study flatulence, he turned it into a high-stakes competitive sport. Levitt's methodology was pure, unadulterated nightmare fuel. Yes, it was. He recruited, get this, only 16 volunteers, stuffed them with pinto beans, and literally plugged their backsides with airtight tubes. No wonder he could only get 16 people. But the real MVPs were the independent judges, whose job description was to huff bags of concentrated rectal exhaust and rank them on a scale of mild all the way up to existential crisis. In 2003, Popular Science called this the worst job in science, which feels like a massive understatement for someone who spent their Tuesday morning sniffing a pinto bean-powered chemistry set. The earth-shattered results showed women's farts are more concentrated and toxic, while men favor quantity over quality, producing half a cup of gas per toot. The article called this a literal tie in the battle of the bowels. Levitt even took his extensive thing to NASA, research to NASA, ensuring astronauts don't asphyxiate under their own internal atmosphere. If you're gassy on a flight, don't blame the burrito, blame the ideal gas law. Yeah, there is such a thing as the ideal gas law. Physics dictates that a cabin pressure drop, what that does to your colon, it expands it like a vengeful balloon. Yeah. So the next time you're at 30,000 feet, just remember, you aren't being rude. You're just a victim of thermodynamics. Science is truly breathtaking. Yes, breathtaking. And the Post should really be taken as a serious news organization. Yeah, I had to bring that one to you. Sorry. It just had to be said. So anyway, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on farts, and you can do so at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.